This is Pradeep from Sydney at 11 p.m. in the night. We are in a shutdown as I welcome you all to episode 5 of Global Chapters and Connections, or the global engagement platform of IIT Delhi Alumni Association. And by way of housekeeping, can I ask everybody to be on mute if they are not speaking? Otherwise, I will mute all of you. So today, what do we have today? We've got an alumni who's called the fashion girl of technology. Man, that's an interesting one. And she lives in Singapore. And then we've got another girl. We've got Natasha. Natasha is a textile engineer who's now working with an American bank. Man, fascinating. And more importantly, we have a country session today, which is Canada. And we will hand it over to Vijay Aivalli. He's got a very, very interesting session planned out. So first of all, a big round of applause for Anupama Singal. 1993 graduate from IIT Delhi, living in Singapore, and as I mentioned earlier, with a title, she's very well known in the fashion circles and called the fashion girl of technology. I don't know how that name came about, but over to you, Anupama. We want to hear about your journey post IIT and how did, I know that you worked with Levi's, I know that you were doing your own business, but we'd all like to know more about you. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause, and I want to see the hands clapping.
No, please don't do that. That's very embarrassing.
Really?
But yeah, okay. So, I mean, this all goes back to my IIT days. And actually, when I joined IIT, I wanted to get into textiles because I wanted to be in the fashion industry. But then what happened was that my rank was 600 something. And you know that, there is always an influence from family members. And I had two elder brothers who were in IIT at that time. And they said, no, you will get chemical. Why don't you take chemical? So, there I was. I didn't take textiles. I took chemical. And then I still realized as I was doing chemical engineering that I wanted to be in the fashion industry. So right after IIT, once I completed, I went to National Institute of Fashion Technology, NIFT. You might have heard the name, right?
Yes.
It's the premier institute of fashion business in India. And at NIFT Delhi, I did a sort of MBA in the fashion business. So it's called Apparel Marketing and Merchandising. And that's how I got into the fashion business. And after that, I worked for 2 years with TCNS, which is now the company that holds a W brand. So they came up with a W brand for the domestic market in India. And after spending 2 years in the export business, I thought at that time, TCNS was just doing exports. So I went to Levi's and started working there 6-7 years. I built the brand in India. And then they wanted to roll out SAP across the Asia Pac region. And that's how I moved to Singapore because I understood the business. I had a flair for technology. So that's how I moved. And then in 3 years, we rolled out SAP across 15 countries. And
guys, can I ask you once again to mute yourself?
I think it's Neeraj. Neeraj, maybe we can just mute it. Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Back to you.
And as we were rolling out technology, SAP, and then I went on to build the. I think it's Neeraj.
Okay,
Neeraj, can you mute yourself?
Just hang on for a second. I will mute everybody, and then you unmute yourself.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me now? Yes. And as we were rolling out,
hang on. I muted everybody. Now start again. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I realized that there was not a good system for data analytics at Levi's. And we had rolled out SAP, but then to take out the business benefits from the rollout of, SAP like ERP, we said we must do business process integration and build a whole data warehouse and, find out where the, pockets of revenue loss or pockets of productivity and profitability are there which can be leveraged. So that's how we actually, I went into technology. And after working till 2010, I was just turning 40. And then I said, like, okay, I think I should do my own business and support my husband. So he's been a tech entrepreneur all this while. So I joined him. And then 2-3 years later, started Slicer. Yes.
So this is very fascinating. First of all, I didn't know that you were over 40. I thought you are sweet 16.
No, I'm 50 now. So yeah, past
what really? What? 50?
50. I just turned 50 this year. Yeah.
Well, you've got another career ahead of you in terms of beauty and makeup. So fabulous for that. So now I want to understand. I think you must be the only girl who was so focused and said that I know I want to go into fashion, because I remember when I joined IIT and people used to tell me, oh man, you wanted to be an engineer or what? Man, I had no such desire. All I knew was just sit for exam and wherever you get in, you just join. As simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
So of course we had one guy in our batch, Gul Ramani. He was very focused on to painting and all that. And for him, IIT was just simply a pastime, But it's very well. He's now in Germany and, really following his passion, because that's the end of the day, it really comes down to, finding your passion and following your passion.
Yeah.
But I got the impression that when you joined NIFT and all that, so you were kind of walking down the ramp. But this is where you were
not at all.
ERP and data warehouses and all that. Wow.
I mean, I had to kind of, justify my technical degree as well. And I do like technology, and that's why Slicer was born. So, in Slicer, we have a data analytics platform that helps fashion businesses, especially, do better decision making. This is data and visual analytics. So that's where I've used my experience in fashion industry and in technology to kind of,
So what is Slicer? I know that it's a startup. I know that it's got something to do with analytics. I know it's got something to do with fashion, but what is it?
So Slicer is basically, we create technology platforms. So we've got a couple of products which help fashion businesses look at their data in a more intuitive way. So data with product images. As you can understand, in fashion businesses, images are very important. And, we found this need gap in the market that there were a lot of business intelligence tools, there were a lot of reporting tools, data warehouses were there and so on, but not an easy way to integrate the images into the data analytics. So that's what our flagship product Canvas does. It basically mashes up the company's product images and there are all kinds of data, whether it be sales, inventory, plans, product attributes, product information. It mashes up these two things and helps users in a very intuitive way.
And what is the future? So who's the boss, you or your husband?
No, he manages, he's the founder of Integrated Retail, and Slicer Canvas was his idea, but he's a co-founder at Slicer, and he does get involved in many sales and customer success related initiatives, but product platform I've been working on. Yeah, so I mean, both are.
It's the corporate language that we are a good team kind of a thing.
Yeah, kind of.
Fabulous.
It's not easy to work together.
So where to from here now? You started another startup earlier. You're on to another startup now. Yes. So where to?
So I think artificial intelligence, machine learning is playing a big role in analytics right now. And that is something that we've incorporated into our platform as well. And I think the whole idea is with this whole remote working, earlier I saw that a lot of companies were a little bit hesitant of putting their data on the cloud because our platforms are all on the cloud, right? And they were a bit hesitant, but last couple of years, that whole thing has just gone out of the window. So everybody's opened up to the idea of cloud technology and putting their information on the cloud. People are not so reserved right now. So I think there's a big trend that is happening that people are getting comfortable with cloud technology. They are getting comfortable with, letting the system, do some of the tasks and then use that to aid their decision making. earlier it was all like, okay, it's people focused, right? So it's your strength and your skills and who is in your team, what are their skill sets, right? Now it's not just that, it's also the tools and the processes that you're putting together along with the team. So that's what I feel is that like there's a big shift, in the business owners or business leaders mindset right now. So anything which you think can be done faster with the aid of technology and more intelligently, that is what is going to work out. So in your own areas of work, if there are processes, like if you just talk to the, people who are actually doing the day-to-day job, not the strategy, but who are actually doing the job, and find out what are their pain points or where do they spend 60% of their time, right?
So one
And think of
question,
how we can automate that.
I love the story that you're telling, but I'm
Mm.
also keen to understand, how do you get the work-life balance? Do you have kids?
I have a 20-year-old boy.
20-year-old
Yes.
boy.
Yeah.
Wow. And so how do you kind of do work-life balance, because running your own business means it's a very much 24/7 involvement. I mean,
Yeah,
literally.
but now the thing is he's older. So he's doing national service in Singapore, which is basically the army. So he goes every day at 6 a.m. and comes back at 7 p.m. So I don't have to do too much
Anything.
for him. In fact, I don't have to do anything for him. He's quite self-sufficient. And the days for me and my husband to work, and a lot of times we are working from home, going to office now with COVID, so we get more time together. So that's nicer.
So it was absolutely fabulous to meet you, Anupama. Of course, I know you from before, but from a GCC perspective, it was
Thank
absolutely
you.
fabulous to meet you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I want to pick up on what we have discussed today, because there are a number of things as we go down the road for GCC this year. And I will circle back to you and get you into
Sure.
it, because like last year, we will be having a global summit, but we'll
Sure.
also be having regional summits, and we'll also be
Right.
building up, platforms and networks into the ASEAN, because that's what
Okay.
it is. We need to look at all countries all over the world.
Hmm.
So thank you once again for joining in, and
And thank you for talking to me and having me on this session. Thank you.
let's give a big round of applause to Anupama, and have a lovely time. I know Singapore itself is going through some pangs of COVID on and off kind of a thing, and there is a talk of a bubble between Australia and Singapore. But who knows?
Yeah.
First Australia has to get their act together. So
Yes.
bye for
Yes.
now, and
Thank you.
have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
We now move over to our second guest of the day, and that is another girl. Now I've got to remember, the other girl that I'm talking about is somebody by the name of Natasha. She is a 2015 graduate. Now, let me see, 2015 graduates, that means she must be what? 2015, she would be about 21, and 6, she's about 27, 28. And how old am I? I'm going to be 66 this year. So she's just 40 years junior to me. So please give a round of applause to Natasha. Natasha.
Thank you so much, Pradeep sir, for inviting me.
And I love this girl because she did a textile engineering and she works with the American bank. So maybe those people in the American bank wear some very good clothes or something like that. I don't know how that happened. But over to you, Natasha. Please tell us. First of all, also, she is one of the office bearers of IIT Delhi Alumni Association. So let's hear your journey post IIT, Natasha.
Thank you, sir. So basically, I started working in Bank of America in 2015. I got campus placed in Bank of America, and I started working in business finance control, BFC as we call it. And I was working there in distressed loans. And I worked in that department for about 2 years. And later I wanted a shift, and then I moved to another region. And I changed my securities, and then I started working on equities. And I basically just want to put it out there. I really like this company, Bank of America. The best part of it was that it really provided me a very good work-life balance. I'm a person who really needs time for myself, and it really suited me well. You'll hear less people who say that they really like their company, but yeah, I am one of them. And I I really like working there. It had everything that a person like me would want. So
So
after
just a
working,
question over here. Do you like the dollars also they pay you?
yes,
Okay,
it's
exactly.
good. So after working in the BFC for about 3.5 years, I wanted a shift, and then is when I moved to quantitative services. That's a very entirely different department. The profile was entirely new, and I have been working in that department for. I worked there for 2 years, and then I changed my role to management since I am a graduate, and I got my interest into management, and that is what I told, and the management was very supportive, and I moved to management. And currently within Bank of America, I am in project management within quantitative services, and I manage a team of like 8 to 10 people. And while I was shifting from VFC to quantitative services, I also developed this interest with IIT Delhi Alumni Association. Life gets pretty boring when you just do your routine. I met some alumni, and they approached me for one of the ads that they were shooting for the benevolent funds of IIT Delhi Alumni Association. And since I was into dramatics when I was in college, I used to do street plays. We call it Nukkad Natak, and I was very active in that. We did a numerous number of street plays within the entire NCR, and I used to love doing those. And they knew that, and they approached, and I was like, why not? Let's relive that thing. And we shot that ad, and it was played in Nagme that we have, and it was really an instant hit. And they were like, okay, do you want to do more? And I was like, why not? And then I started working with one of the office bearers at that time, Lalchand Verma. And after working with him on like small tasks, why don't you do a little research on this and this, I found it very interesting to do. And it was a great learning as well for me, because I was trying to know things that I did not get to learn in my corporate life. So that was very interesting, and the people with whom I was getting in touch with and learning from their experience was very senior people. And the way they could comprehend and explain things, that was like very different from what I used to see and talk about with my teams in my bank. So I liked it, and it really got me more curious to work. And then President Mr. Atul Bal, he asked me that if you're so into all these things, why don't you come and be a part of our team? And then I fought the elections in 2019 and 2018, and then I remember I was so much into it. I won the highest number of votes over there, and I was an office bearer, and I worked with them. I started learning in my first year, second year. I was the convener of the webinars. I was into it, so they're like, okay, you understand, you're young, you understand technology. Why don't you? Because everything is gonna be online. So they made me the convener, and it was very interesting because I was a part of almost all the webinars that used to happen, and I used to listen to all these new things. So I think I got the most exposure in the sense of learning, and that was really great. And this year
This is very fascinating. At one end, you were the poster girl for the endowment fund. At the other end, you were fighting elections. And on the other hand, here you are bossing over people at office. Oh man, this is great. So tell me, one thing which kind of strikes me is that how did you happen to land into Bankham after textile? And you see, I find that a lot of people in your age group today are either wanting to be entrepreneurs or wanting to go also into, IAS, IPS and all that. So did you also have any such thoughts, or was it like a straight, like Anupama, that you wanted to go on for fashion, that you wanted to go for a bank or something like that?
two questions here, so I'll address them
I
one
love
by
it.
one.
I
So
love
the
it how
first,
you analyzed into two questions. Love it.
thank you, sir. So basically, the first one, how I landed the job. So as we all know, the campus placement process, it's pretty straightforward. You have a list of companies on the portal. You look forward what they are, if you are eligible or not. I was not a very bright kid that I am very clear like Anupama, that what I have to do, I know. I was not very clear. So like a normal IIT, I applied for every company since day one, and I was trying to give the test packet. And it was Bank of America used to come on day 4. So I was clear with the test. I passed the GD interview, ho gaya, and then I was like, wow, ho gaya. So they're like, okay, job is done. So that was it. I was not very clear, okay, what is happening, but jaise hota hai, you land the job and then you're like, acha, ab karna hai ki nahi karna? I read about it, I like it, and I joined it, and it turned to be really good. So that is how I landed the job. Not very clear, but it was my luck. And about the other question that did I had other thoughts? So yes, I did. So like all my peers in IIT, when I was in third year, I started doing my coaching for UPSC. So I was like, IES बनना है, सब बन रहे हैं, coaching करेंगे. So I started, my coaching in my starting of my third year, when my sixth semester start. After initially, I was very pumped up कि कर लेंगे. Started studying, got to know more about it. Okay, पहले तो पढ़ाई का था. It got clear with time कि what to study, how to study, what to do. Then with time, it when you read more about the jobs, how much it's not that easy to go into after cracking the civil services. The job is not very easy. Even the struggle of getting there, it's not very easy. And then and there, after studying for 1 year, I really worked hard. After, doing the courses and studying 8 hours every day, I knew that this is not meant for me. I'm not meant for this. So I left it there, and I was clear that okay, this path is not for me.
Natasha, what is lovely about you is your authenticity. No, and keep this, because this is a very, very good trait in today's world, when everybody is trying to create not only the digital images, but another image of themselves. It's so nice to meet people who are so authentic, and of course this forum is very much like that. So it was absolutely fabulous to talk to you. And it has also given me an opportunity to know you better and to kind of involve you as we go further down into GCC path. So once again, please give a round of applause for Natasha. And Natasha,
thank you, sir.
We took 10 minutes. Do you know that? Okay. Yeah. So now we move across to the third item on the agenda today, which we are kickstarting by having a country focus. So for that, I will hand over the mic, so as to say, my friend Vijay Aivalli from Toronto, who has put together this program from Canada. So over to you, Vijay, and please give a round of applause to Vijay. By the way, Vijay, what time is it in Toronto at the moment? 9 o'clock?
It's a pleasant 9:25 in Saturday morning.
That's okay. That's man.
One question for you, Pradeep.
Oh, it's 11, nearing 11:30 in the night, yeah. But that's okay. So over to you.
Yeah, in the program, you close your eyes. So I was wondering that, like, when you sleep, do you keep your eyes open? I think you have to unmute me. No.
Come again?
Yeah, did you unmute me?
Oh, you are still on mute.
Yeah, we can hear you, Vijay.
Yeah, we can hear you, Vijay.
Yeah, Vijay.
You are very unmuted.
We can hear you, Vijay.
Okay. Yeah. Hello, everyone, and good morning from Toronto, but maybe evening, night in other parts of the world. And welcome to Kenda Focus program of today. My name, as you know, is Vijay Aivalli. I'm a 77 batch BTech textiles, and from Jawalamukhi hostel. I spent first 23 years in Bombay in the textile industry, and then moved to Toronto in the year 2000, and the last 20 years in Toronto in the real estate, not in textile anymore. So,
just one question, Vijay. You didn't think of going down to the fashion industry?
No, because
just joking. That's all right. Just joking.
I can't compete with beautiful girls, so yeah. So we have today's program. Can I share, Pradeep, my screen?
Yes, please. Please share your screen. You can share your screen.
Yeah. Okay. So 1 second. Yeah, I guess this.
Yes, we can see your screen now.
Yeah, 1 second. Let me just zoom it. Yeah, okay. So welcome once again. So the all the attendees, especially the new people who are attending. So please write your full name, phone number, password here, degree, and hostel name in the chat box. So that will help us in in the forward events. So brief about IITD alumni in Canada before we move to the speakers. In 2020, as you all know, IITD Alumni Association decided to expand its outreach of alumni worldwide, and they constituted the GCC. And Canada is one of the leading chapters as it has a significant number of alumni and has a well-defined organization of all the IITs called IIT Alumni Canada. So IIT Alumni Canada is like basically all the IIT alumni in one umbrella. So though IITDAA started last year, IITSA has been going for 30 plus years, and it's a very well-oiled organization. In just a perspective, in Canada, we have IITD members from the very first batch of 1966 pass out, and to the most recent 2019-20 batch as well. So we got a very wide spectrum, and we need to cater to every taste, so to say. So as per my estimation, there are about 300 IITD alumni in Canada. And so far I've been able to identify about 50 plus IITDians in Toronto, rather in the whole of Canada. And thanks to my friends in Vancouver, Calgary, and other places. So a little bit about Canada, most of you know, but it's a little different from the USA in terms of diversity. We have people from 200 countries in Canada. And if you go to any school, you'll find children from 50 countries at least. And but there's also inclusiveness. So people try to include each other, accommodating them. And one difference with respect to US is typically in US people go on the job and then they become the citizens. But here, we come on our own and then we look for a job. So many times we end up with like a contract job, so that they come to know us. And many times we start like individual business, like my own. With respect to Canada, there are some minus points, like it's not very open, like in the sense, you don't know who your neighbor is in the way we know back in India. But they're all like, every country has its own little bit of different things, like even a bit of a racism, and weather, of course, is the extreme over here. And in order to connect alumni with alumni, or persons with a similar interest, to connect for mutual benefit and helping one another for their interactions or career or business. So the IITD alumni helps, in this aspect. It will also help the future immigrants. Some of them may be the listeners in this today's event. In case you wish to come to Canada, then what to do, how to do, and how to go about. So with this as a brief intro, and we'll be going to the next, which is like 4 main topics by Virendra, Surinder, Sharma, Nemy, Banthia, and Raghu, Murthy. And whatever questions people have, I request them to put it in the chat box. And I would like to introduce Raju Goteti. So Raju Goteti would be the moderator for the questions. And so he will be coming in at the end of the talks and be taking the questions and arranging the answers. Now, after the question answer session, so we have Anirban Kundu. So he wants to say a couple of words, sentences, and then we have got a vote of thanks. So let's start with the first talk of the day. It's by Virendra, but the introduction is by Chugh. Chugh, you are on.
Yeah, greetings to everyone in this room. My name is Chugh. I'm the IITD alumni from 1990. It's my honor to to introduce Dr. Virendra Jha to this session. Dr. Jha is an IITD alumni from the class of 1968, mechanical engineer. He did a master's from McMaster, PhD from Concordia, and also a chartered director from the McMaster University. So he has achieved quite a bit in the academia. And by the way, when he was in IITD, he stayed in 3 different hostels, Vindhyachal, Aravali, and Kara. So he made lots of friends. That shows how popular he was moving around in different hostels in 3 years. So Dr. Jha in Canada, he has about 42 years of experience in the Canadian space program and held many leadership and executive roles in both private and public sectors. He was lately vice president and acting president of the Canadian Space Agency. He provided the strategic direction for the whole space program in Canada and led several major projects, including Canadian participation in the International Space Station, the radar set program, and ANIC F2 satellite program. So pretty a great career in terms of the space program in Canada. Dr. Jha has published almost 20 papers in the same space industry. He has served as board members for 5 technology-related not-for-profit organizations, and he is currently a member of AECL's board of directors. For those who don't know, AECL is the pioneer Canadian nuclear industry. Basically, everything that Canada has in the nuclear industry is because of AECL. And I'm also part of the nuclear industry. For those who don't know me, I started in India almost 30 years in nuclear industry I've been working. So I'm glad to see that he's part of AECL. And Dr. Jha, please give my regards to Fred DeMarker, who is the CEO of AECL at this time, and hopefully we'll meet soon. And finally, Dr. Jha has received the Order of Canada. That's the topmost Canadian civilian award, amongst other several awards he has received. So welcome aboard, Dr. Virendra Jha. Floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vinod. That was absolutely fabulous. I could feel the sparks, the nuclear sparks, when you were talking. But over to Virendra.
Virendra?
I think you have to.
Do you have to unmute him?
You have to stop sharing your screen if you want Virendra to show his face.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. Yeah, Virendra, I think you have to unmute yourself.
Virendra, are you there? I saw you.
Yeah.
You had joined in.
No,
Let me
It's
check
okay
whether
now?
are you on mute or what is the story?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Hi, Virendra. How are you? So good to see you.
Oh, thank you, Pradeep. Okay, so what I've been asked to do is in 8 minutes, give some summary. So what I selected is, I'll give you briefly a description of space projects where I feel they are important worldwide, but I also feel that because Canada has participated in those projects, so I've chosen those. So I'll be talking about James Webb Space Telescope. I'll be talking about the Gateway program, radar set program, and some of the constellations of satellites. The first one, which I'm very excited about, is James Webb Space Telescope. This is a project which has been in works for almost 15 years. And I think the total cost has gone up to about $10 billion. What this is going to be is the next space telescope after Hubble. And Hubble can see about 12 billion years of what happened in space. This one is going to allow us to see what we call the first light. So this will go back to the looking at the origin of the universe. Just to give you a very quick 2-minute background on the origin, when the universe got created, it was too hot. It was too hot to the point that even the subatomic particles like quarks and leptons could not combine because of heat. When it started cooling a bit, then some of these particles had strength to connect because the temperature was not too hot. Then we had the first formation of neutrons and protons and things like that. When it further cooled, then the first element which got formed was hydrogen. And due to gravity, when hydrogen started collecting together, then this hydrogen converted into helium. And that's when the first stars developed. And that's when the first light in the universe started. Before that, it was all dark. So the first 400 million year or so, the universe was dark. And then the stars began to form and the light started. And this whole thing happened from the beginning about 14 billion years ago. So this James Webb Space Telescope is going to be positioned in one of the Lagrange points in space, which means everything in space moves, but this will be at a point where it does not move. And it has an infrared detector. So it will be able to detect the first light, which started 14 billion years ago, and obviously has reached the Earth now. And just to make it understandable, when you see a train coming, the frequency changes if it comes towards you, and frequency changes as it goes away from you, the Doppler effect. The same phenomena is used in space because the galaxies are moving away from each other. And when they're moving away, the frequency changes and the light moves from what they call the red shift, which means the frequency moves towards red color. And from that, they can establish the distance, and also by the intensity of light, they can know how far it is. So this is how this thing works. Canada has contributed to this program. Major program contributors are USA, Europe, and Canada. So I'm very excited about this. This will be launched in October this year. So you should not keep your ears open, and would be a very exciting program. And for the first time in human history, we will know how the universe looked when it first got created. The second program I'm going to talk about is Gateway program. Again, Canada is participating. In general, it's called Artemis. This is the program where at least the Western countries are going back to moon. So there's a multiple system, there's a launch system, there is going to be a station on the moon. There's going to be a rotating space station around the moon. And again, Canada is providing all the robotics which will be used in this program. Sorry, somebody had a question?
No question at all. Please.
Okay. The third program which I'm talking about is RadarSat. This is very unique to Canada. Canada was the first country to design this type of satellite. We can take image of the Earth using microwave, which means whether it's night or the day, we can take the image of the Earth. Most of the other imaging satellites which rotate around the Earth are optical, which means if the clouds come, if the night comes, they cannot take the image. But RadarSat can take the image because of the microwave. We use radar to take the image, and Canada has been positioned in this field as probably the most advanced country. The fourth thing which I'm going to talk about is constellations. The satellite sizes have become so small now that you can launch thousands of them. I think SpaceX is launching about 6,000. There's, there are multiple constellations. Canada has a company called Telesat, which will be launching about 600 satellites. The idea of all these constellations is to provide internet globally at high speed. So when I started my career, we used to have geosynchronous satellite, and the capacity was limited. Now with this approach, throughout the world, we would not need any infrastructure other than, you will be able to receive through a small antenna at your house, all kind of information. So this is a very brief summary. I can talk more, but because of time, I'll limit here.
So thank you very much, Virendra. And what I'm excited about is that you are excited about these programs.
Yes.
And what I really love is that you are the first, I suppose, the Indian recipient of the highest order in Canada. I'm also proud of the fact that you were head of what is equivalent of NASA in the US, or what is the equivalent of Indian Space Agency. It's an honor to meet you. And I remember that time when we had lunch in Montreal. Beautiful memories, beautiful memories. And we will be involving you more in the days ahead to come into GCC, as you have a lot to contribute. Please give a round of applause to Virendra.
Just one more thing I was asked, that how could IITians get involved in the space sector? And the answer is very simple. I think most of the people who work in the space industry come from different backgrounds. There's no such thing as space technology. Space technology is a combination of many technologies. So you have mechanical engineering, you have structural dynamics, you have thermal engineering, you have microwave engineering, digital engineering. So all these things are needed for the space. One way to get in is start following a aerospace program, or do graduate program in any of these engineering. Find a co-op program, which then you find opportunities to get into short-term training during the co-op with the space industry, and that might be the best approach. In Canada, the space industry is not big. The space agency does hire. There's a company called MDA, which is the most hardware producing company, and there are many small companies. In USA, I think getting into space industry is going to be hard because of the security clearances, but people can obviously work in Israel. It's easier to get into Europe in the space industry. And if someone has any specific question, I'll be happy to answer. And I'll stop here. Okay.
Thank you. And back to you, Vijay.
So, our next, sorry, the next speaker is Surinder Sharma. Surinder Sharma, probably some of you know, and he'll be introduced by Brij Sharma. So both Sharmas in one plate. So Brij, can you please unmute yourself and start?
Yes, thanks, Vijay, and thank you, Pradeep, for organizing this. It was so wonderful to meet Virendra. Well, we'll have some time to meet in person, Virendra. I have spoken to you a couple of years back when I was on the IIT Alumni board. But now it is a COVID time, so this is the only way we can interact. We hope that it'll end soon. So I'm here to introduce Surinder Sharma. Surinder is the IIT Delhi alumni, electrical engineer, and he's a founder and president of Power Saving Systems company in Canada, which is a leading energy conservation service. And they assist in helping businesses and and owners, reducing the energy footprints, basically trying to be more energy efficient. And he has been a pioneer in this area and conducted several workshops in this field. And he has over 500 projects he has completed in this direction. And almost more than 20,000 businesses he has helped retrofit energy efficient lighting and systems. So saving energy in a great way. So that's really, kudos to him and his team. And he's also, in addition to being, helping the other businesses, he was a part of the board of Mississauga Board of Trade for over 6 years, and he's been director there. And he has also been very active in general life. He was founder and chair for Panorama India in 2001. And so he has helped IITians in a big way, the newcomers. He has been mentor, and he was a past president of IIT Alumni Canada. And he was a committee, a member of the committee which created the constitution for IIT Alumni Canada. Go Green is the mantra, and he has taken it very seriously to his heart, and he's helping a lot of initiative into the community and businesses by integrating these energy efficiency product into the businesses and helping a lot of owners. So I won't spend much time. I'll actually directly request Surinder to.
So before you go, Brij, can we just know your year of passing out, which discipline, which hostel, and which city in Canada you
Okay, that's good. I should have introduced myself. I was in Nilgiri in the beginning, and I passed 1986, and I did my master's in physics. And it was part of physics and electrical engineering. Later, it is called microelectronics. It was initially part of the physics and electrical engineering. And I worked in Center for Applied Research in Electronics for over 10 years as a senior scientist, and also part of the faculty later on. And I worked on one of the program which was actually crucial for Akash missile, that phase shifter. That was the component developed in IIT Delhi. So I feel I really enjoyed the time I spent. Probably that was the best time of my life when I spent in IIT Delhi.
That's very fabulous, Brij, and a round of applause for Brij. And which city in Canada are you in?
I'm in Mississauga, which is actually, well, you can say GTA.
Oh, yes, I know Mississauga very well. I mean, that is where a lot of Indians live in Mississauga. And that is where Vijay also stays. And once when I was in Toronto, I stayed with Vijay. So I know Mississauga very well. So thank you very much. And back to you for on forwarding to Surinder.
Thank you, Vijay. And thank you, Brij. Thank you, Pradeep, for this opportunity. Well, I'm from Delhi Public School, and then
hey,
at
which
IIT,
DPS are you from? Which one?
Mathura Road.
Well, I'm also from Mathura Road. Which year did you pass out? We'll talk about this later on.
later on. Okay. I have been in Jwalamukhi Hostel, Electrical Engineering Department, and during school days, I was a Delhi State Boys Table Tennis champion. And in fact, in 1 year, 1966, I won the Delhi, Himachal, and Rajasthan boys titles in table tennis. So getting into IIT, obviously, my big passion was for sports, and I was also the football goalkeeper. And then I was unbeaten in 2 inter-IIT meets. Then once I was also pulled up to an emergency when our hockey team was very strong, but they had a weak goalkeeper. So I was asked if I would like to be the hockey goalkeeper. And then my joining the hockey team, we got the gold medal in the inter-IIT meet that year. Then I served as a general secretary sports, and with all that background, I was quite a popular figure, in fact, in the Kailash hostel also. So, a little bit of humor. So whenever my matches were played in the Jwalamukhi hostel, the bigger crowd used to come to my TT matches due to 2 reasons. I don't know whether Vijay remembers. Number one was, of course, to watch my game. The second was every match, there were 3-4 girls from Kailash hostel coming to watch the match. So the boys used to have some fun and wanted to go and drop them off at Kailash hostel after the match. So this is a joke I'm giving. Then when I became the General Secretary Sports, that year they decided to draft out formal constitutions of the student bodies, which was sports, RCA, then student affairs and the hostel management. So I was part of the committee which drafted in those early days. And during my tenure, there were 3 directors, actually. R.N. Dogra retired, then Dr. Luthra took over for a while, and then Dr. Swani was finally appointed as a director. So I saw during my term as General Secretary 3 directors and had very close interaction with 3 of them. And also, of course, had with Dr. Subramanian Swamy, who created that time, first of all, a workers' union, then a staff union, and then his target was to form a students' union when I was there that time. And in fact, I was the one who resisted, and they even brought Jaitley, who was a finance minister till recently and passed away from Modi's cabinet. He was the president of the Delhi University Union that time, to convince us, and brought a draft copy how we should form a students' union there. But I took a stand that since we have drafted these 4 bodies and we are running it so smoothly, there's no need for a students' union. And in fact, there was a little bit of anger in some groups. Once a fire was also set up in my room, my clothes were burnt when a meeting was going on. All those things I have seen through during the times of IIT. But I think the bottom line was, my focus was that the reputation of the IIT brand should not go down in any way. And as a student leader, I ensured that the reputation of IIT was always upheld. That was a little story about the IIT. Then I started my career as a management trainee with the J Engineering, Usha Fans at Calcutta. Then I moved to Scooters India, Lucknow. Then finally, I was general manager at Panwire, which is Punjab Wireless Systems Communication Company at Chandigarh. And during that time at Chandigarh, we formed formally an IIT alumni with Brij Gulati as president. I think he's still running the association there. And the first dinner was held at my house. In fact, Professor R.N. Dogra and Kanta Dogra both came to my house, and he had retired and settled in Chandigarh. The first director of IIT, he attended our IIT alumni dinner at my place. So those are some sweet memories. And from Chandigarh, I moved to Bombay as a general manager with the Bajaj Electricals. After serving for about 4 years, then I moved to Bahrain with Al Khaja. They were the manufacturers of Daikin air conditioners in the Middle East. And there in one of the NRI seminars, I met Manu Chabria. He invited me to join Jumbo Electronics at Dubai as a general manager. And then we did a lot of startups of manufacturing sector in Sharjah. And we almost captured the market in the whole 6 AGCC countries for freezers, coolers, ice cream converters, and cooking ranges, all manufactured in Dubai. And that gave me good opportunity to travel to Europe, bringing in new technologies into Middle East. Then in '95, I moved to Canada and joined QBD cooling systems in Brampton. In fact, that offer also came to me while I was working in Dubai. And I must say that God has been very kind to me, that I have never applied for jobs, and always automatically things moved and they have rolled in such a way. And till 2002, I worked with QBD cooling system, then decided, now let me do something on my own. When I started power saving systems, with collaboration with a US company called Energy Automation Systems. At the same time, Canada signed the Kyoto Protocol. And when Chrétien came back, he launched a lot of programs to bring efficiency in the existing buildings. And here in Ontario, Premier Dalton started a program by which, because about 35% of the power in Ontario was through coal-fired generating stations. So his focus was that how we can shut the coal-fired generating station, and the only way was conservation.
I want to stay home.
Somebody, any question?
No question. Somebody was
Okay.
speaking, but they muted themselves.
So thereafter, the local utilities took up a lot of programs, and we got opportunity to play a leadership role in doing seminars and workshops on behalf of utilities, and then running their programs also, because they didn't hire people to do everything. So they subcontracted to companies like us. So we were running the small business lighting programs in the GTA, and that's how we did about 25,000 shops across Mississauga, Toronto, Markham, and bringing in efficiency. And that also went into two phases. First it was T8 fluorescent lamps and all that, and then it came to electronic ballast and T8s, and then finally we came to LEDs. So in two phases, all this consumption happened. And I'll tell you that it is a big achievement which Ontario has done, because they took this program at an early date, and in about 10 years' time, all the coal-fired generating stations were shut off, and there was absolutely no new nuclear plants were set up. So all this came from the conservation which was done, and there were two taglines which my company we developed to bring in a culture of conservation from a culture of consumptions. To shift from a culture of conservation, that is the only solution. Then turning the wasted energy into dollars, that is another solution, which is the tagline. In fact, some of the utilities wanted to take it, but I always kept that in our brochures. So this has been a big, and the program which we followed was a 6-step way to bringing in energy conservations. And I think now slowly I'm now downsizing my business and enjoying life and leading a more happy retired life.
So tell me, Surinder.
I'd like to have any questions if you like.
Okay. Tell me, Surinder, when the temperatures reached 54 degrees in British Columbia,
Yeah.
did they suddenly remember you in British Columbia?
Well, this is how it happens. You have to balance everything. When you put too much of coal and too much of carbon into the atmosphere, it is definitely imbalancing the whole system, and it results into that. So we have to bring control on our habits, on our consumption, and protect the planet at the same time, so the coming generations are happy. They don't face similar situation what you said.
So I can see that you walk the talk, because you even shut yourself out, and I can only see the wall. Maybe to conserve energy, and that's all right. A big round of applause for Surinder.
Thank you.
So back to Vijay. Next is Nemy. So who is introducing Nemy? Of course, Nemy does not require any introduction, but who is going to formally introduce Nemy?
Hi, it's Praveen. I will be introducing Nemy.
Hello, sorry, I didn't unmute myself. Okay, yeah, Praveen Goel is going to be introducing Nemy Banthia, Nemy Banthia as we know him.
Yes.
So Praveen Goel is also from Vancouver. Praveen, you're unmuted yourself?
Yes, I am unmuted.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Vijay. Obviously, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce Dr. Nemy Banthia. He graduated in 1982 in civil engineering. And while at IIT Delhi, he resided at Aravalli and Jawala hostels. So it looks like today, quite a few people from Aravalli and Jawala. I'm actually from Karakoram. He's a distinguished professor and senior Canada research chair at University of British Columbia. His primary area of research is in sustainable concrete infrastructures. And he has also led India-Canada Center known as IC Impact. Actually, it's a very famous center. The center is supported by both Indian and Canadian governments. And it's a $60 million center, which is involved in applied research with India in water, infrastructure, and public health, and dedicated to bringing advanced technology to communities in Canada and India. And main point noted here, it is not just only bringing advanced technology to India, but also from India and within Canada, actually, to Canada.
Before we go to
Banthia
Nemy, Praveen, can we have your introduction as to which year of passing out and et cetera,
Sure, I will do that once I'm complete in a few seconds, Dr. Banthia's introduction.
Sure.
So Dr. Banthia holds 9 patents and he has published over 450 research papers. He serves on the editorial board of many international journals and is the editor-in-chief for the Journal of Cement and Concrete Composite. And he has been recognized by many institutes and universities for his exemplary research and leadership. In 2018, Dr. Banthia received Global Citizenship Award by the UBC Alumni Association. And of course, we all know in 2020, IIT Delhi recognized him with the Distinguished Alumni Award for contribution to teaching and research. And Dr. Banthia is Fellow of American Concrete Institute, Canadian Society of Civil Engineering, Royal Society of Canada, and many more other societies and institutes. So of course, I can go on to introduce Nemy. He's a good friend and mentor here in Vancouver, but of course, he will talk more about it. And just since Pradeep, you asked about my introduction, actually, I did my undergrad from IIT Roorkee in 87, 89. I graduated from IIT Delhi in mechanical engineering department. And since I was an academic, I actually taught in IIT Roorkee as a assistant professor. Later on, I moved to US, worked in automotive industry for about 15 years, Ford Motor Company and TRW and ZF. I was a director of engineering there. And later on, I moved to Canada. And then for last 15 years, I've been working with Canada Post Corporation as their Pacific region's director of engineering, responsible for all infrastructure programs and engineering here. So
just a quick one, Praveen, did you move to Canada when Trump came to power? Just joking.
It's been a long time back.
Just joking.
I was in Detroit, and Canada and Windsor was just across the street.
Yeah, I know.
So without further ado, I hand over to Dr. Nemy Banthia.
Thank you very much, Praveen, and thank you again, Vijay, for the opportunity. And certainly, what a great idea to have this wonderful country focus. I really like the idea. So thank you so much to Pradeep as well for this great idea. When Vijay asked me, I said, "Can you talk about something?" So I thought I could give a 30-minute course on fracture mechanics instead, but then I was told that will not be a very good idea. So what I thought I could do is maybe give a overview of the Canadian academic and landscape in innovation. Canadian academics, scene is very different from around the world. It's very different, certainly, from the United States, and it's got certain unique features, and of course, certain unique challenges as well. And I thought I'll give you a broader overview of that academic scene here. So currently, there are about 106 universities in Canada. And as you know, we are a bilingual country. So some of them offer actually fully French instruction here. So there are universities that only teach in French. So if you compare that to United States, US has 4,000 universities. So we are really a very small player in this field. And India has about 1,000 universities. So I think we are very small compared to India as well. I think in terms of number of universities here, we are only 37 million people, of course. So I think we are small in many ways. But it's a country that really stresses on education. So currently, we have about 1.4 million students enrolled in Canadian universities. And the university sector is seen as a $38 billion enterprise and employs over 300,000 people. So it's a very large undertaking for the government itself. Let me talk a little bit about the governance of Canadian universities. Now, most people believe that we don't have private universities, but we actually do. So in Canada, we have private universities, but they're all religious in nature. So these are theological institutions which run as private universities. So you might have heard about Trinity Western in British Columbia, St. Mary's in Alberta, Canadian Mennonite in Manitoba. These are all private universities which are completely devoid from any other provincial governance. But while there are no private universities in Canada, and why aren't there private universities? So in Canada, most of you may know, health and education are provincial responsibilities. So accordingly, all our secular universities are public, and they're public because they take public money for educating the provincial population. So that's one of the reasons why there are no private universities in Canada, because it's a provincial responsibility. Provinces, therefore, also keep a significant control. For example, at UBC, where I am, half of the board is appointed by the government, which is in fact very different from other countries. So half of our board actually comes from, these are board appointees from the government. So and one thing that the provinces do is that they provide very, very good provincial support for universities. So with this copious financial support that comes from the government to these universities, Canadian universities being very well funded, and since they cover pretty much entire spectrum of studies, there are very few niches to fill, and there is not a lot of room for private universities in in Canada, sorry. So if anybody's thinking of starting a private universities in Canada, it's not going to succeed because really the Canadian public universities are extremely well funded. Now, since all universities are publicly funded, our fees are very low. And I think those of you, who are thinking about sending your children to Canada for studies, this would put a smile on your face. Our fees are probably one of the lowest in the world in the Canadian schools. And they are some of the top schools here, but our fees are very, very low. On an average, a Canadian student at a Canadian university will only pay a little over $8,000 in annual tuition. Compare that to United States. Of course, we have a foreign student pay about 5 times more, but it's still actually much lower than the United States fees in even the B tier schools. So I think this is a really strong, feature of Canadian schools, that our fees are extremely low. Now, because our fees are low, that also immediately leads to foreign students, actually. So Canada now ranks third globally in foreign student attraction beyond the United States and Australia. So we are third in terms of attracting foreign students. And Canada's international student population has now tripled over the last decade to about 750,000. So there's 750,000 students, foreign students, studying in Canada at the moment in such a small in a country with such a small population. Now, let me tell you something that will be very surprising to you. Most foreign students in Canada do not come from China, as many of you may actually know or think. In fact, they come from India. So the largest number of foreign students coming to Canada are now from India. Currently, we have 220,000 students from India in Canada. So it's a very large, 250,000 students actually literally are in Canada. Doing foreign studies from India. And the Chinese number is only 140,000, and it's dropping quite rapidly because of the political issues as well. But we are in fact the largest I would say, foreign study supplier or training supplier to the Indians. Now, there is, of course, it's a two-way street. Educating foreigners is a big industry here. International students contribute about $22 billion annually to country's economy. You can imagine how much money the Indian students are bringing to Canada, for example. So this industry is $22 billion industry teaching these foreigners in our country or teaching these foreign students. And it helps create 170,000 jobs. So clearly, I think Canada is very interested in bringing more foreign students to Canada. So for the remaining time, let me talk a little bit about research and innovation in Canadian universities. So we are, of course, very well funded. First and foremost, and something perhaps surprising to most of you, Canadian universities rank very highly. And 4 of them are actually in the top 50 in the world rankings as per the Times Higher Education and QS ranking. Institutions such as University of Toronto, University of British Columbia, and McGill are ranked actually in the top 40. Most people, when you think about top ranking schools, you always think about United States and other places. But we have 3 universities that are in the top 40. Get this. University of Toronto is ranked higher than Cornell, which is an Ivy school, or Ivy League school. It's ranked higher than Northwestern. It is ranked higher than NYU, and it's ranked higher than Carnegie Mellon. So clearly we have, in fact, some of the top schools in this country who are ranked much, much higher than some of the American schools that we think of as the sort of icons in the field. University of British Columbia, where I am, is ranked higher than King's College London, Georgia Tech, and in fact, EPFL in Switzerland as well, actually. So we certainly have very highly ranked schools in this country. Now, let's separate research from innovation, and that's the last thing I want to talk about. And I think this is our challenge, I think, in Canada, is innovation. So let's count research output in the form of peer-reviewed papers and innovation in the form of patents. And here is, in fact, there is an inconsistency between what we produce as research output in terms of papers and what we produce in terms of patents, and patents leading, of course, to products. And then eventually, let's connect it to the knowledge economy. And this is really the challenge Canada faces as a large country. And that's where I think the incongruence I want to point out. Now, Canada produces 4.1% of all scientific papers in the world. 4.1% of all scientific papers in the world. And remember, we are only 0.4% of world population. So we are punching, in fact, 10 times our weight of our population, or percentage of population, in terms of producing knowledge. We produce so many peer-reviewed papers from this country that it's actually something to be very, very proud of. But on the other hand, Canada produces only 1.7% of world patents. So there is this kind of incongruence between producing research and actually producing a patent and producing products. So why is this? Why is this kind of this dichotomy? Why is this incongruence, inconsistency? And why is the Canada a research powerhouse, but it's not an innovation powerhouse? And this is actually something that bothers the Canadian government a lot. So here's my take on it, why we are not actually squaring these two things. Canadian faculty is really well funded through government funding councils. That's, in fact, a good thing, but that's also part of the problem here. Surprisingly, when you consider the purchasing power parity and the fact that the university overheads in Canada for government-sponsored research is zero, take this. Our overheads in this country are zero if it's a government-sponsored research, which really means that our purchasing power is much, much higher for every dollar that the research money. And government-sponsored research, being the source of our funding, Canadian faculty, you'll be very surprised, has nearly twice the amount of funding per capita than their American counterparts. We have twice the amount of funding than our American counterparts, which means that there is a lot of money for research. And this, of course, produces research output, but really not patents. Now, why doesn't it produce patents? This is because Canada remains largely a resource economy. 83%, we are completely a resource-based economy. 83% of Canada's GDP and exports are tied to resources such as petroleum, Alberta, of course, lumber, British Columbia, minerals, British Columbia and Ontario, and even water. With the North American Free Trade Agreement, United States consumes nearly 80% of Canadian raw materials. And with this very easy flow of goods, Canadian businesses face very little competition. And that's part of the problem. And this has made our businesses here in this country, pardon my expression, lazy. And without the need to innovate, we are pumping resources and essentially selling it out to the market. And I think this is what really needs to change. So what's in store for the academic sector in Canada? Personally, I believe that a low innovation, high standard of living equilibrium is highly unsustainable. Volatile resource prices, changing demographics, and increasing economic protectionism, think about Trump now, exposing Canada's business innovation weakness and generating pressures to become a more innovative country in the coming years. Here's our challenge for the Canadian Academy. Canadian academic sector needs to innovate, and yes, it should keep producing high quality research papers, no doubt about that. And we are very good at that, but it should also learn to convert research into patents and patents to products and services. This is our biggest challenge the Canadian academic sector is facing. There are many new programs now. MyTax, for example, the innovation superclusters that I know Raju is involved with, Raju Goteti is involved with as well in terms of superclusters. And of course, IC Impacts, which is also doing its own bit in terms of creating more patents in the international global scene. And these will support these objectives of becoming Canada a more innovative country rather than a resource-based country that pumps resources and sells them in the world market. Canada needs to be both nimble and adaptive. So thank you so much for listening to me. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Fabulous presentation, Nemy. This has been absolutely excellent. And may I tell the group that last year, Nemy co-authored a great paper for helping IIT Delhi increase its global rankings. So once again, a big round of applause for Nemy. Back to you, Vijay.
Thank you, Nemy Banthia. It's very nice to hear you. Always so more so today. So then we move on to the next speaker. Our next speaker is Raghu Murthy, whom some of you know, but he will probably be better introduced by Vikrant Verma. Vikrant, are you unmuted yourself?
Yes, I have. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Please go ahead and introduce Raghu.
Okay. Thanks a lot for this opportunity. Again, my name is Vikrant. I am 2001 pass out textile, first BTech batch in Vindhyachal. So I am also one of the textile engineers who's working in banking, like one of the speakers we had actually. So it's my pleasure to introduce Raghu. So Raghu graduated in 2004 from IIT Delhi with BTech in chemical engineering. And he's my neighbor, like he's from the Shivalik hostel. He has spent most of his career in the energy sector across coal, gas, wind, hydro. Some trivia about Raghu is that Raghu went to DPS at RK Puram. It seems like we have quite a few number of people who went there. So he was an active participant in dramatics, and he did his hostel proud when Shivalik went from a non-entity culturally to second in BRCA, which is actually a big feat. He has lived and worked in 7 countries across India, Korea, Singapore, Ireland, UK, US, and now Canada. And Raghu will basically spend the next few minutes on Canada and the global historical and projected trends in energy. So I'll just pass it over to Raghu for sharing his thoughts on this.
Thank you, Vikrant. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm going to be sharing my screen. Let me know if you can see my screen. Yes?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. So I think being in the energy industry, you really get a sense that you're a little bit in the front seat of history because so much change has happened and so much change continues to happen. If you think about Canada, Canada is very lucky to have the world's third largest freshwater supply. Anywhere you go, there's the one other thing, that when you move from other countries to Canada, you get the feeling anywhere you go in a few miles, you see a freshwater lake. So it's very privileged to have that amount of fresh water. And the result of that is Canada has really done a nice job in setting up a very sustainable energy path to their economy. 60% of Canada's electricity comes from hydro. This is the highest of any major economy to have such a high percentage coming from non-fossil fuel. And if you think about hydro, I mean, we get these visions of the Pakra Nangal Dam and what Nehru used to say. It is an old technology that's evolving, but it still remains extremely relevant. Solar and wind are more fashionable, but they have issues of having intermittent power. Solar doesn't work in the night, same for a little bit for wind. What the benefits of hydro is, it provides stable power. It's more than 90% efficient. It's a little bit like that Hero Honda ad that they used to say, fill it, shut it, forget it. You build the asset and then you basically forget about it. It keeps running. So Canada built their assets 50, 60 years ago, and they basically require almost zero maintenance. We now export power to the US. And to me, it's very fascinating. I mean, most of the utilities in India right now are bankrupt. But if you think about the Canadian utilities in Quebec or Ontario, they are so profitable. They annually return to the Canadian government $3 billion of free cash and income back of revenue to Canada. So overall, it's been a fantastic, sustainable and business model for Canada, with the taking full advantage of what nature gave it in terms of fresh water. But to me, when you talk about energy, it's difficult to talk regionally. I was on vacation last week in the Canadian Rockies in Alberta, and for a few days I had, it's great mountain air, but then for 3 days, the air quality was worse than anything I've ever seen in Delhi, which is to what, Pradeep sir was alluding to, the forest fires which started in California, went to British Columbia, came to Alberta, and the air, you think you go to the Canadian Rockies and the air is thick with smoke. And so energy is always going to be not a regional, energy is always going to be a global issue. If you look at the global macro trends that have happened over the course of when I worked in the energy industry, the graph is a little bit small, so I just kind of talked through a little bit. These are the bars of how the cost of electricity have changed for the main sources in the past 10 years. So coal and nuclear are here. They've been flat as they've gone up at about 150. Solar has gone from almost 400 to below 100. Onshore wind has also gone below 100. Now offshore wind is tending to 100. So the net beauty that's happened over the past 10 years is renewable energy is finally competitive or even lower cost than fossil fuel, which used to be unthinkable. And one of the ways it's happened is really through government support. Very substantial and generous tax credits and grants in the US for both solar and wind has led to 50% increase year over year. China completely monopolized solar manufacturing with the direct government support. All the, most of the PV panels today of solar, and Surinder sir can probably speak to this better than me, are made in China. The panel costs have gone down by 80%. And lastly, and this is a phenomenon that's happened in the past 3 to 4 years, offshore wind used to be a science project. It's like, a final year science project, you do that. Sometime you're going to have offshore wind. But in 4 years, offshore wind has become a reality in the world, and especially in Europe. They funded, they provided great energy tariffs. And the net result is that Europe is now the global leader of offshore wind. They've got 20 gigawatts installed. They're installing about 5 to 6 gigawatts every year. And now US is going to install its first major offshore wind in New England. So offshore wind has come of age. So a lot of really exciting, credible things looking back in the decade on what's happened in renewable energy. Now looking forward, I'll go to the next slide. looking forward, the whole Paris Agreement, we have basically, two scenarios ahead of us on what's going to happen in the next 15, 20, 25 years. And that's been, the debate on what's going to happen with policy, with government, with the UN. Either it's what's called the gradual scenario where we basically miss the goals of the Paris Agreement. And this could still happen because you need a lot of investment in renewables. There is a lot of inertia of governments. Governments don't move as fast. At this point of time, whether it's Canada or India or Europe, everyone is struggling to meet their, climate commitment goals. Clearly, the change that's happened in the US between, Trump and Biden, they've come out, then they've gone back into the Paris Agreement. And at this point of time, technologically, there is still not sustainable alternatives for the petrochem industry and the aviation industry. So those are the risks ahead of us, where you could have a scenario where the fossil fuels, which is the very, the bottom section, stays a little bit flat. Nuclear and hydro and solar and wind increase moderately, but the planet then would be much hotter and we would miss the Paris climate goals, and then we know what's going to happen. But then the scenario, I guess everyone is trying to work through, is a little bit what's called the rapid scenario, which is that you do meet that you're not going to increase the pre-industrial temperature of the Earth by more than 1.5 degrees. Right now, it's already 1 degree hotter. So we have what, 0.5 degrees more is the max we can do, which really means that the very top section, the light greenish, the solar and wind, has to rapidly increase over the next few years. Fossil fuels, especially coal, has to rapidly decrease. And if you look at the bottom left chart, where it's going to be very interesting being in renewables is between now and 2030. To make that a reality, we have to go from being 1 terawatt installed to being 11 terawatt installed in the next 9 years. We have to increase solar by 8 times, wind by 5 times what we've done so far this year. And there are some good things that's happening on top that kind of gives you the confidence that it's going to happen. Carbon taxes are increasing exponentially year over year. The decisions on putting capital investment in coal has actually decreased 75% than what it was 3 years back. So coal is really on the ramp down more aggressively than what we thought. There's a ton of pressure from society and government, but we still have to figure out how do we fund this energy transition. You need about 4 trillion of annual investment needed wing to wing across the energy spectrum, storage, hydrogen, transportation, to make this energy transition happen. So clearly there are risks of being on the left side, but that's not an option for the planet. But it will be, I think, super interesting to be in the energy industry and see this transition on the top right side, as hopefully we meet our goals and keep the planet safe. That's I know we are late, but that's just a little bit of a summary. I thought I'll talk a bit more about the industry.
Very good, and an eye-opening presentation, Raghu. It really makes you think. But the kind of challenges. But what I liked was in quite very good succinct way. You sent the message across and you kind of showcase different components. Fabulous. So a big round of applause for Raghu. And
thank you, Pradeep. Thanks, everybody.
And back to Vijay.
Yeah. So, Raghu, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next. Okay, is a question answer, and it's moderated by Raju Goteti. Raju, are you on unmute?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm hopefully audible.
Yes, please introduce yourself.
Okay, thanks Vijay, and thanks Pradeep, and thanks everybody for having me here. My name is Raju Goteti, and I'm the Vice President and Head of Global Co-Innovation Network at Tata Consultancy Services. I'm based in Toronto. IIT Delhi 85, passed out, and then I did Masters in Ocean Engineering in Canada, Memorial University. And much later in life, I did Masters in Social Innovation at University of Waterloo. Now, there are fantastic questions, but less number, 3 so far. So I'm going to start with the questions that we have on hand. But I thought I'll just also say that first we need to really kind of open up, and know that we are all living here because of something. What is life? That's how really the whole session started with today. So the question I would rather ask Virendra sir, what is the expectation when we see the first light land upon Earth? What is, really the expectation? And, what should we be all really looking forward?
So, Raju, whom is this question addressed to? And I think if we can stop sharing the screen so that people can kind of see the faces of people who are responding.
Hello?
Yeah.
Virendra, are you there?
Okay, yeah, I can start. So the expectation from the program is that we will be able to understand how exactly the universe started, how exactly the galaxies first were formed and how they grew. So that so far it's all theoretical knowledge, and it will be a visual proof as to what really happened. So that is the expectation.
Excellent.
I think this is the journey in growth of human knowledge, and I think this will add to that.
Right. And I was also wondering what kind of information we get when these rays of light hit the Earth, and what is the kind of discovery that the scientists are thinking about.
Well, that's exactly what I said. I think we are still postulating and theorizing how the origin of the universe took place. This will provide us a visual proof as to what exactly happened in the beginning of right after the Big Bang. Some of the things even before the light was there, because we have infrared sensor, it senses heat. So you'll be able to see even before what happened in the star formation, what was happening in the universe. So it's very critical program, and as I said, I'm really excited about it.
Thank you so much. I think we will look forward to tracking this, following this, what's happening. And thank you for this, opening session of yours. It was very, very informative. I'll carry on the question to the area of education, which Professor Nemy Banthia has spoken on. So there are 2 questions here for you, Nemy, from the audience. One is from Saurav, and he is asking about the kind of curriculum that is designed in Canadian universities. Particularly, how much of it is textbook style, how much of it is application oriented, how much of it is, more of skill-based programming. So some insight into that would be really useful.
Thanks, Raju. That's a very good question. I think, and it's always on any academic's mind, is the curriculum. And we walk, in fact, a tight line here. I think it's a very narrow range, I think, of possibilities generally when you're modifying your curriculum, because you have to go for accreditation. Accreditation is very important in engineering, and we have an accreditation board here, CEAB, like the ABET in the US. So we have to satisfy all of the accreditation requirements. So what we do, particularly at UBC, is that while maintaining those accreditation requirements, we have altered our pedagogy completely. So the pedagogy is the way you teach. You may actually have the same curriculum, but the way you deliver that curriculum. And there, I would think, as there's been tremendous change, I think, we have learned that, in fact, this very mundane classroom education does not really transpire into knowledge. So there's been a great deal of emphasis on experiential learning. There's been a great deal of emphasis on group learning now. There's a great deal of experience on community service learning. So, we are trying our best to see that the students actually are not very narrowly sitting in classrooms and learning, but they are also going out into the community to apply their knowledge. You're working with each other, in a group setting, and also they are learning through more experiential or working through more sort of hands-on learning. So I invite you to perhaps go take a look at the curriculum at UBC, particularly. I know Toronto is also a leader in this, but that has changed very much from when I went to, undergrad. Definitely has changed, I think. And one maybe very simple thing I would add is I think that I've spoken to actually faculty at IIT Delhi, and this is again very much on everybody's minds, is that we need to reform our curriculum. And IIT Delhi also needs to actually look around and actually change the curriculum, or at least the delivery of it, as we have done over the years.
Thanks, Nemy. So there are two more questions still on the education side. One is about the digital superclusters, and the second one is on global warming. So I would request you to talk about both of them. And when it comes to global warming, I would request Surinder Sharma also to take the lead after that.
Sure, thank you, Raju. So the motivation behind all these programs, such as the supercluster, the network of centers of excellence, it's exactly what I said in my talk. I think we are a country that produces a lot of research output, but that research output doesn't convert itself into wealth. You'll be very surprised to learn that 80% of Canadian research ends up as patents in Japan, Korea, and the United States, which means that we are doing research here, we publish all of that information, and eventually it shows up, in fact, in a product in China or Korea or United States. So what the country needs and what the government is actually constantly thinking about is that if we are spending so much money on research, so Canada spends on, as I said, on per capita basis, twice the amount of money the United States spends on research per capita or per faculty, but we are not getting the benefits out of it in terms of really the industry becoming more competitive and things like that. So what they thought, there were a couple of programs that have come, and I think maybe this would be another talk, a longer talk some other time, but what they thought was, how do we actually bring the industry and academia together? And supercluster is one major thrust where they look at, in fact, combining clusters of people who are, for example, in digital technologies. So digital technologies has number of 100 players who are all working separately from each other, all working in silos. So the government said, okay, we're going to give you a couple $2 billion actually for you to work with each other, so that you can come up with actually solving the problems in a holistic manner. And then you can create a synergy amongst yourselves, I think, so that you eventually turn out products and actually services with the government or which people can use. Same way, I think we have, in fact, what we call an alliance program, which is a very large program. It's, in fact, even bigger than the superclusters right now. Alliance does very interesting things. Alliance takes $1 from industry and gives $2 in relation to $1 from industry to give $3 to the academia to work with the industry. So it's more than a matching fund, actually. So, and now it's open to all universities around all companies around the world. Earlier it was only for Canadian companies, but now if there is an Indian company that sees that, in fact, there's an opportunity to work with a Canadian expert, they put in $1, government will put in $2 actually to make that project happen. But the end of the day, they do want actually very much, a product or process or commercialization. Very briefly on climate change. We are strugglers, I would say, particularly given the fact that we are a resource-based economy. We are a resource-based country. 25% of Canadian exports is in petroleum. Unfortunately, at this moment, Alberta is suffering, as you know, with all the climate change issues, and we want to control the, COP26 is coming, and we need to control our carbon footprint. The carbon footprint of Canada, you may not believe, is much higher than most countries in the world. We are producing almost 21 tons per capita right now. United States has actually gone down. It's gone down to about 17 tons per capita. Canada is still at 21. We are very close to Saudi Arabia, actually, in terms of our carbon footprint. Country wants to be carbon neutral by 2050. This is the lofty goal that our Prime Minister has expressed, that Canada wants to be completely carbon neutral by 2050. But there is a talk about being carbon neutral, and there is reality about being carbon neutral. So I don't see actually that kind of I would say very, kind of that innovative thinking behind becoming carbon neutral. So we are actually a country that needs to really think hard how we would become carbon neutral. So we are not doing very well on that so far.
Thanks, Nemy. So carrying on with the theme on, green and savings and, making sure that our planet is a better place to be in. Surinder, over to you for your thoughts on, how do we really conserve, energy?
I think comparatively, if you see the last 10 to 15 years, as far as the government programs and the local utilities have been making a lot of efforts to bring it down. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have come to this situation where we are today if we had not done that. Especially on lighting side, I think we have made substantial reduction in the consumption and the load. So that has very much helped. But I agree, automotive, I think we have to be a little more stringent, definitely, to bring the changes. That's one area. And the coal-fired generating stations, like I mentioned, at least Ontario has shut off, but a few more in the central part and western, maybe we have to focus more. That should be done. And then the construction also has been going on quite a lot in Ontario, and all the buildings also, the load is coming more. But still the total KW, if you see whole of Ontario, it has been quite stable as far as electricity goes. But then people in their daily life, they all have to be more self-conscious and bringing their own habits and own changes and contribute by that. Government alone cannot do. People have to be really more conscious. Thank you.
And thank you very much. So I think, Raju, we have had
one last question, I think.
Be very quick if you can.
Yeah, because I think let's give a chance to Raghu also. And that's, taking the cue from, again, energy. And your thoughts, Raghu, on, solar and wind based energies. And, what is the future for them? And is the footprint of these generating sources going to be going up or going down in the future?
From a Canada standpoint, perhaps I'll just start from a Canada standpoint. From a Canada standpoint, look, I think over the past 10 years, solar and wind used to be, I think, 1.5% contribution to Canada's power output. Now it's closer to 6.5 to 7%. And 2/3 of all new installed power in Canada over the past 10 years has been solar and wind. So I would say the trend within the region has been quite positive, even though there's probably been a dip in the last couple of years. And as the cost of electricity has come down, we do expect that the 6% will become 10, 12, 13%. So that's from a Canada standpoint. And that trend is probably true as well, more from a global standpoint as well. I think in 2 years back, you must have read the news. There was a big coalition that was formed under the Solar Alliance with a lot of countries, including India as a founder country, where they're trying to build huge 300, 500, 600 megawatt solar farms. And that trend is looking very positive. So hopefully things will move in that direction.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your answers. I'll sign off. Thank you. Over to you, Vijay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Raju. It was indeed nice. And so we have a list, a few points from Anirban Kundu. Okay. So Anirban, you are unmuted yourself?
Yeah, I'm on.
Yeah. Yeah, so please, go ahead. You can speak, be as concise as possible.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. And I noticed it's almost 1:45 in Australia. So before Pradeep sir falls fully asleep,
that's all right.
We're just saying, like,
we'll wake him up.
So we have had a lot of interesting talks today with leadership in space, in academia, in industry, sprinkled with a bit of fashion, with a bit of perks of working in Bank of America. So just to sum up, I think I would like to start by thanking all our speakers today for the insightful talks. And IITDAA Canada chapter strives to create an environment of inclusion and diversity, running parallel with the Alumni Association's innovative and impactful projects involving a number of stakeholders, both at home and here. Our team aims to connect with fellow alumni in Canada, and incorporate their thoughts into the multiple ongoing projects. Most importantly, I believe we aim to have the implications felt back at home, thereby making our little contributions to the commendable efforts taking shape in India for India. We are very excited to be part of IIT Delhi Alumni Association. After all, you may leave the institute, but the institute never leaves you. Thank you very much for all of your time today. And I would like to request Vijay sir, who has put together this excellent event, our excellent organizer, to please conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Anirban. Just a couple word of thanks to everyone. So thanks to all the participants all over the world. I saw some of my classmates had joined, Vijay and Kushal Sen and Aditya and others. And thanks to all the speakers who prepared and are given a fantastic presentation. Mr. Virendra, Surinder Sharma, Nemy, Banthia, and Raghu Murthy. And also the people who introduced them, Vindo, Chugh, Brij, Sharma, Praveen, Goel, and Verma. And Raju Goteti, thank you for combining all the questions and putting them effectively. And big applause, big thank you to Pradeep Khanna and Kalpan Shukla for arranging this. So thanks everyone, and I hand it back over to the half sleepy Pradeep Khanna. Thank you very much, Pradeep.
Oh, this was absolutely fabulous, Vijay. I must put on record what a beautiful program this has turned out to be. Every one of the speakers today gave such beautiful perspectives. So really, thank you so much for putting all this together in such a short time. I know we hardly spoke, in just a couple of days, you got all the things up. So a big round of applause for Vijay for putting this together, as well as for all the speakers today for sharing the insights. And as I said, this is just the beginning of our journey as we build a global platform together where any alumni can connect with any other alumni on a value-driven basis. Let's make this happen. Let's make this grow. And let's, I don't have words for, I mean, I really found the session very, very interesting today. And we will give some more interesting shape to it.
I think, Pradeep, I just want to add that I was also not expecting that it will go really to that extent. It will be integrated so nicely with so many number of speakers coming in and pitching in. And I think with this kind of thing, we can make a nice panel and do a public meeting also once the COVID is over with this kind of agenda. I think it will fit in with so many experts within the IIT alumni on this subject. I think it will be a good idea.
Absolutely.
We should do some public outreach also.
Absolutely. I was, like from Raghu talking about this thing, from Nemy to you to when it is great. I don't have, it is really a great experience. So folks, this is what we want to do for every country that we are, at least kickstart with UK, with Singapore and different parts where we've got good concentration of alumni. But more about this in the next and the coming sessions. Have a lovely morning, evening, afternoon, night, or whatever it is in your part of the day. And till next week, a goodbye from Sydney.